great thing about it is that there's not a lot of content out there. So the people that do have the headset, that are into the VR, they're looking for content. They really want the content, right? So that's kind of what we did. And also right now there's not too many platforms where the VR video can be hosted. So we live streamed it to YouTube, and people with the headset are able to see the footage in full VR. So they're like looking into the room. And what we did also is at the venue did give a demo, so people could watch with the headset. So they were there, but they could also like put on the headset and see what it would look like in VR.
In today's episode, we're interviewing Alessia Priolo. She is an event and marketing professional that I connected with on LinkedIn. She's got an extensive portfolio of successful corporate events in the metaverse, virtual events. She is also the president of the award-winning nonprofit music organization Sincop8ed Noize Foundation in Canada, and she's been involved in planning, coordinating, and marketing many in-person conferences, galas, trade shows, music festivals, and more. She's also a musician in her own right and instrumental cinematic music composer. She's incredibly talented, and we get into all kinds of things about how to get into the music industry if you're interested in it, how the music industry events and how other industry like trade shows and corporate events, how those are related and in what ways those are different. We talk a lot about the marketing side of things. We touch a little bit on the organization side. We talk a lot about how to build a career in event organization and event promotion, especially for those that are really interested in emerging technology. She has some really cool experience putting on some events for the metaverse. So super excited for this one. Check it out. Event Vesta is a simple yet powerful tool for event organizers. With Event Vesta, you can post your upcoming events to event calendars all through your city on the most popular websites without spending hours on each doing it manually. Get hours worth of marketing done for your events in 5 minutes or less with Event Vesta. Check out how Event Vesta can help your business today by checking out vesta.fun/podcast. Well, hey, Alessia, thank you for joining us for the Event Promoter Podcast. I'm excited to have you. We connected kind of randomly on LinkedIn. I think you might have seen one of the other podcasts. So I was scrolling through your LinkedIn profile and kind of amazed by all the things that you've done in the music industry and the event industry. So I want to just give you a chance to like kick it off and just give us a little bit of background. Let's start. I always like to start with like the present. Like, what are you working on kind of at a high level right now? And then if you want to, we can kind of talk back to some of like how you got into that.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you, and thank you so much for putting together this great podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with where you're at right now. What are some of I see that you're president of the Sincop8ed Noize Foundation, and you're obviously doing a bunch of other work in the event space. So what are some of those things what is Sincop8ed Noize, first of all? And then like, what are some of the other things you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So Sincop8ed Noize is a music nonprofit organization. I started working on this. Well, I started doing events in 2014, and then I got into, my first events were more like music events. And then it kind of grew from there. So I created this, it's a nonprofit based in Montreal. And we basically do events and activities for emerging musicians. We've done a lot of different types of music events, concerts, conferences, and yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about. So I have that going on, and then I'm also working on corporate events, trade shows all over the US, Canada. So I'm really like doing a lot of different types of events in the industry, and it's really exciting because each event is just different, it has its own, characteristics, and I'm always constantly obviously learning, and it's really great to see that, each event is kind of its own little project or big project. And it's really exciting to see how the industry has evolved over the past few years. And I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to work in so many different industries, nonprofit sector, public, private, you name it. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am today.
That's exciting. So it's cool because you have a mix of, a lot of people are like either in the music industry or maybe in performing arts, or they're in trade shows and conferences. So having that kind of swath of experience is pretty cool to be able to mix and match those inspirations. And
yeah, exactly. I don't get bored, that's for sure. Sometimes when you're stuck doing a specific kind of event, it could get repetitive. But I've done so many different types and so many industries, so it keeps it really interesting.
So you obviously love events, and I want to ask you this question of like, what is it that you think that makes events important?
Events bring people together. Since the beginning of time, we've gathered together, whether around a fire or, it's just kind of our nature to bring people together. And, just that interaction, they just make people happy, right? So when you're organizing the event, you're kind of like party organizer. It's just really great to see see, people come together, network, you build really great relationships with people, and, just kind of like working from like the beginning of the event, the early planning to actually seeing it happen and come together. It's really exciting because then you see all the months of work that you put behind it. And then it comes to life and you're like, oh, like you really get to see the finished product, and anything you do well, you'll be able to see. And everything that you don't do well, you'll also be able to see.
And those are the things the attendees notice. I always feel like
Yes.
if the stuff that goes well, everyone's like, yeah, cool, that was cool. And then it's the
But
thing that goes wrong. It's like,
yeah, people will always tend to notice those little things that, always the negative, which is fine. I think at this point, like every event planner is used to it. You're like, but what about all these other great things that happened? But yeah, the events will always say, oh, but the food or, this
yeah,
happened.
I had to wait too long in line, or I mean, and it
Yeah,
makes us into a bit of like perfectionists because
we have to be perfectionists and we have to be able to take criticism.
yeah.
Because you kind of learn to build a strong personality when you're in the event industry, because people will criticize you all the time, so you kind of have to get used to it. Even if there's no such thing as a perfectly planned event, I've learned to realize that. And I used to be really tough on myself to say, it has to be perfect. There's no such thing. Unfortunately, there's always going to be areas of improvement, but that's what really makes us really resilient professionals, and always learning to make things better.
I think that in my experience, it's very much you're a perfectionist up until the
Yeah.
day of the event, and then you're just like, okay, whatever happens, I'm just gonna roll with it and try to solve problems as best I can.
Yeah, there's a few images I've seen, like definitions of event professionals. It goes from like magician, professional problem solver. Yeah, when you're like on site the day of the event, it like all the randomest things happen. Like things that you didn't think, like, really, the truck broke down, like flat
Yeah.
tires. People, like, the weirdest things happen. You always have to be prepared for it, and there's just things that are always going to be outside of your control. So you just kind of learn to be this, like, the day of the event, I always take deep breaths and be like, okay, well, I wonder what is going to go wrong today, because the reality is there's always going to be something, and you always have to be ready to like solve the problems.
Yep, as they come up. So to go back a little bit, how did you get into events? You told me that this was not like what you studied or
Not at all.
thought you were going to do. So how did you end up in events and get to where you're at now?
Yeah, so when I was little, I was always passionate about, like the universe and the science. I was just a big geek, studying, like reading science books, astronomy. So yeah, I went into the science field thinking I'd be, one day would be a scientist working either in a lab or behind a telescope or something. But yeah, when I was in, I studied in university, I studied at Concordia. I was doing a Bachelor of Science, and I always had this thing about, just organizing, events. It's really strange how it all happened, because I was a musician. I kind of put music aside because I really had to focus on, doing my work. And then as I got towards like my last years of university, I was like, hey, now I might have like a little bit more time to focus a little bit on music. So I started performing, and I started organizing my own shows and my own events. And, other musicians, other artists were like, hey, like you're really good at this. Can you help me plan my own event? They're always like packed. My events, they had good attendance. So it just kind of got into it. And I realized, like, okay, maybe I'm good at this. Maybe, let's try and explore this new skill. And then as soon as I graduated, I just kind of was like, you know what? I actually, I enjoy this, and I like doing this. Let's try it out. And actually turned into my career, because then I went, I started working on like bigger music events, music festivals. And then I started working more like on the corporate side, which was interesting because, there's really a lot of transferable skills, obviously. So I started working on all different types of events, and it just kind of went from there. I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm gonna be an event professional now. But obviously there was a lot of learning that went into it. I went back to, study and learn about the marketing, because there's so many different things. So there's so many skills that an event professional need to have. So I just kind of did the learning by trial and error, but also went back and did some, some studying, and really learn a lot about like the industry and pick up new skills.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this. I made a post about it recently about the difference between
Mhm.
organizers and promoters. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear just your take on that, because you're a certified marketing professional, and obviously you didn't go to college for that. So that was like an opportunity for you to go back and learn about that. Like, there's so much crossover, but like, just what are your
There
thoughts on the
is.
difference between those two pieces of the puzzle?
Yeah, for sure. So an event professional, so an event planner is, can be very specialized into the logistics and the planning of the event. So anything from, dealing with the caterers, the suppliers, so really like all the planning of the event. The event promoter, in the other hand, is responsible for, yes, obviously making sure the event is happening and well
Yeah.
planned, but also responsible for the marketing and making sure that people also attend the event. So the event promoter is really a marketing professional in terms of driving attendance, understanding who's the audience, marketing the event, make sure people attend the event. So although there are similarities, there are really two different types of skills that you need to have. And I've had the opportunity to be on both sides as the event planner, but also the event promoter. And being the event promoter is definitely I find more difficult because you need to get you need to have people attending the event. You need to have people present, and sometimes you're faced with things like, oh, there's a snowstorm, there's a power outage, or there's a pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's definitely challenging, but I've really learned a lot from doing from wearing both hats, being the planner, but also the promoter, and getting people to attend the event. But you really need to be like on the promoter side. You really need to know your marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like that's something you had no experience with before, and then you just
Yeah.
like learned it on the job slash, found some education opportunities?
Yeah, exactly. And I have to say, a lot of the marketing is very analytical. You're looking at data, you're understanding trends, you're looking at numbers, you're looking at, understanding your audience. So I did find that, some of the things that I learned in science are kind of, applicable to marketing. So that really helped me. It taught me to be very analytical, looking at the numbers and the data and building strategies to increase those numbers. So that's something that I found like, maybe I'm not like too far off. I'm still kind of doing the science when I'm doing the marketing. But definitely those are skills that I had to learn. I had to learn about digital marketing and really like finding all the different ways that you can, market and promote the event and drive attendance.
Yeah. So on that note, like what are some of the things that you found have been the most successful for you for promoting events?
So it really comes down to understanding like who your audience is, doing the research about the competition. Like the worst thing you want to do is like, try plan an event when there's going to be like 20 music festivals. Let's say you're planning a music event. You don't want to plan it the same week that you're going to have like major music events or festivals, right? The same thing goes with like the major conferences. You want to make sure that you're, look at your competition, do the research. Don't book an event where you have, like major holidays. Like you really need to do your research and understanding your audience and use all the different marketing tools that you have available. So don't just focus on social media. You need to do your email marketing. You basically need to be everywhere. You need to have an online presence everywhere. And I also still believe in the power of traditional marketing, print media, ads. So those are things that have worked well for me. And sometimes I'm surprised, you think a certain audience is going to be more on a specific platform, but then you realize that using all the different tools and being everywhere is a good strategy. So just, when you look at the marketing budget, try to kind of diversify your reach.
Yeah, I think there's something about like, and people use more than one platform. So if they are on one platform and they see it, and then they see a billboard or a flyer or something about it, and then a friend tells them about it, it kind of seems like this, like, well, why am I not? Something's going on here and I need to be there,
Yeah, exactly. And also like platforms like change and evolve. So you need to be up to date with what's, kind of like where people are and learn the different platforms. And sometimes, I've had times where I've, promoting an event on a specific platform worked in the past. But then now I'm like using like another platform might work because, just people have moved to the other platform or, trends have changed. So one thing that's really important as an event professional is to stay up to date with what's happening and get the certifications and stay up to date with also the knowledge because it's always changing. Like something that worked 10 years ago in marketing might not work today. So it's constantly evolving.
And even when you're using an older channel, it still sometimes is the same channel, but it's new strategies. Like you might be using Facebook,
exactly.
but it's a new strategy, or there might be new ways to use billboards or new ways to use like flyers or brand ambassadors and that kind of stuff. What are some of the like, just to get a little granular on this, like what are some of the things that you're seeing like right now that are kind of trends or things that you've tried recently? You're like, oh, wow, that's worked really well, or, oh, that's not working anymore.
Yeah. So things like doing like giveaways or, specific promotions around the event getting people to like actually get other, like to talk to other people about it, you know? Yeah, and email marketing, I'm still surprised of how well that works. Because when people check their email, they're just like, you know, it's that one place where you don't get other distractions. Basically like staying up to date with the different trends, and they're constantly evolving. And like, you know, we might be talking about something now, and like a few months from now, it might be something different, you know?
Yeah, you got to
But
try
yeah,
stuff for yourself, because there's always like if you read a blog post or see something like this and it's like, yeah, that might work, but also could be outdated or it could come back around. Like,
yeah, exactly.
one question when you say email, there's kind of some nuances with email marketing about like what people mean when they say that.
Yeah.
Can you describe like what? I mean, and you might have more than one thing going on. Are you emailing people that are already like on a newsletter and already signed up? Are you
Yeah,
buying
exactly.
access to a newsletter? Are you
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So building an email list is very important of people that are actually interested in receiving updates and content from you. And sometimes like I've known like organizers that it's kind of like they tend to forget about those people, but they
yeah,
subscribe to your newsletter. They've like literally told you, send me information about, you know, your events. So you want to keep them engaged, and you want to make sure that you do reach out to these people, because they've given you permission to reach out to them. So, you know, just keeping them engaged and not forget about them, because yeah, I find that email marketing is still like pretty powerful, along with like all the other platforms, social media, obviously. And really dig into like the analytics and see like when's the best time to post. Actually, a lot of Facebook now has like a lot of native tools that are very good for looking at, you know, they actually tell you like the best times to post during the day. And especially if you're promoting events like in different parts of the world, you have a different audience that is everywhere. You want to do like different content strategies and really target those different areas, different times of the day. I find there's a lot of tools now that are native to the platforms that are also very, very helpful in understanding and posting the right time of day and reaching more people.
yeah. I think a lot of the platforms, as they've gotten more mature, have
Yeah.
given a lot of tools, if you pay attention, to help you, because they want you to be successful on the platform, because they
Yeah.
want you to come back, and obviously they want you to spend some money there too, but they want you to be successful when you do spend money also. So
Yeah,
uh
and also one thing you just kind of made me think of that is, you know, like now that we have different event formats now. It's not just in person. You can have an event online and in person. You can have hybrid formats. So obviously, when you thought about driving attendance to an event, you were initially was like, oh, you have to think about the local area, right? The area where the event is attending. Now it's so powerful because you can actually reach people all over the world. So you can do an event in person, but have a hybrid, like a virtual component. Now your audience is basically the world, right? So you can market the event everywhere. So there's a lot of power in that. You can reach people all over the world now with events, and give them the opportunity to attend. And also that is just so much more of an inclusive strategies, because even people, let's say people that couldn't attend the event, that have disabilities or like whatever, they couldn't attend in the past, or they're located somewhere else, they're unable to make it for whatever reason, now they're able to be there. So I think it's really important that, you know, we're exploring this new side of these new event formats to be more inclusive and really like reach more people worldwide. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
On that note, I know you hosted a really cool like metaverse live concert thing recently. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So the event was produced by Sincop8ed Noize Foundation. We had a whole team behind it. So I wanted to try something different, since, you know, everybody's been talking about the metaverse, how big it's going to be. So I wanted to definitely explore, you know, a new event format. Obviously, VR technology. You know, going back to my initial mission, it was support emerging musicians, and VR technologies they're very expensive. If you want to produce a VR event, the technology is not super accessible if you don't have a huge budget. Like all the artists who have done VR events, there are like big productions that have been able to afford it. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do something bold and try something out here and do a VR event. And it was actually live streamed in VR, which a lot of people said, okay, you're you're crazy, because as you know already, like just doing a regular live streamed event, there's so many things that can happen. But yeah, we live streamed it in VR. We had people in person, and then we had a live audience. Yeah, it turned out to be a success. And I think it's really great to step out of your comfort zone sometimes and try different things, and also give the opportunity for the online viewers to be more involved and have a more immersive experience. The technology is there, obviously. It's not as far ahead as we'd like it to be. So anytime we talk about the metaverse, there's always like we have to think about the error margin. Like there's a lot of things that can and will go wrong, but I think it's important to really push ourselves and try to get like the technology there. The fastest way we're gonna get ahead is if we try things and move forward with the technology. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a slower process. But yeah, I'm really proud of it. The event was called Immerse Montreal. And we had 6 artists performing, and the event was split into two parts. And yeah, I'm really excited to see where that's going to go, and also to see where other event professionals are taking things. It's really exciting times.
Can you describe what the VR aspect of that looked like? Like, how is that different than just a live stream?
It's basically more immersive. And when people think VR, they're like, oh, I need a headset. You don't necessarily need a headset. If you don't have one, it's going to be obviously it's going to be a 360 view. So basically you're going to be able to kind of like move your phone, and you get to see the room. And what the great thing about it is that there's not a lot of content out there. So the people that do have the headset and that are into the VR, they're looking for content. They really want the content, right? So that's kind of what we did. And also right now there's not too many platforms where the VR video can be hosted, so we live streamed it to YouTube. Yeah, no, it was really great. And people with the headset are able to see the footage in full VR, so they're like looking into the room. And what we did also is at the venue did give a demo, so people could watch with the headset. So they were there, but they could also like put on the headset and see what it would look like in VR. So they were really excited. Cool. Like they kind of got lost in their own world. They were like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Where did you have I'm assuming you're using like a 360 camera to stream that. And then like, where did you have that at in the venue? We
placed it in the middle of the room because it had such a wide angle. So we were able to capture, like, it's crazy. We only used one camera, but it was just like a really, really obviously great camera to capture like the full view. And then when you see with the headset, you're actually able to see like the floor, you see like the whole event surroundings. So it's really great. And obviously the artists were really excited because, they wouldn't necessarily have access to that kind of technology, those kind of budgets to be able to, perform. And obviously we received government funding to be able to do this from the government of Canada, Factor Canada. So they were able to make this happen for us because, like I said, it's not super accessible.
Yeah. What is that government funding? Is that for like technology innovation, or what's the?
It's a mix of technology innovation, but also to support specific initiatives and to develop the Canadian music industry. So there's grants available for that. A lot of people or artists don't know about it, or event professionals, but there is funding available. You just have to have a really good idea, a team, and execution to be able to make it happen.
Cool. So how do you go about promoting an event like that?
Yeah, different marketing strategies, being everywhere, trying different things, and obviously target the VR communities, right? So for this type of event, you have to understand, okay, who consumes this type of content, where are they, and figuring out ways to reach them. So an event like that, it's really about targeting the communities that are like, they're into this type of content and are actively looking for it. The great thing about new types of formats like that is that there are communities online, even, on social media, people that are, they are looking for the content. They have the headset, but there's just not enough content that they're able to consume. So they were thrilled to know that there was a music event in the metaverse.
Yeah, that's cool. I think that's that touches on an important thing of like, sometimes instead of trying to convince and try to force a bunch of people to come to your event that are maybe not interested, like finding where the people are that are interested and are already going to be interested. It's like a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And it helps to kind of narrow down your market. I would rather market to the right people than market to all the people, because those people are going to be interested in your event, so they have a higher probability of attending.
Cool. Yeah. I think that we could talk about that forever. I might have to have you come back on the podcast sometime later to talk specifically just about the VR stuff, and maybe you'll have done some more stuff by then too. If you were just going to give some advice to someone that's just getting into event organizing and or event promoting, what would that look like? Like if someone that's like you were, just hosting some shows or something in college as a musician or whatever, what advice would you give them?
That's a great question, and I'm asked that question a lot with people that are like, "Hey, how did you get into the industry? Like, you weren't in this before, so how did you go there?" You just have to have the motivation and like just kind of not fear what it's gonna look like. Just kind of go for it. If you have an idea, if there's something you want to do or try, you just have to kind of do it. There's no how-to guide, especially like the event industry and like the creative industries. You just really have to just go out there and try things. And it's okay if you fail at the beginning. I've produced events that at the beginning were like, okay, it's my family and friends here, great. How do I get people that I don't know out there to come to my event? So when I started to see that was kind of my motivator. I'm like, oh, hey, there's a room full of there's 500 people here and I don't know most of them. So that's when you're like, okay, I'm actually reaching people that are outside of my network and they're actually have an interest in attending my event. It's small steps and little wins, and sometimes you're not going to see the progress right away, and it takes time, and you really have to just believe in yourself and just do it for long enough. You're going to see the progress. A lot of times people quit before they're able to, they're really close to that line when it's like, okay, you're able to make this a career. But because you don't see the results right away, I think that's why a lot of people struggle. But patience and persistence are going to get you far.
Great. That's really good advice.
Thank you.
Probably for anything, but especially in the event industry, takes a certain amount of tenacity and
it really does.
Initiative. Okay, so just to wrap it up, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience, either parting wisdom and also just a way that if someone wants to follow you and check out some of these events that you're doing and learn from you, how can they do that?
Yeah, sure. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I do promote a lot of. It's a great place also to talk about events and to promote events. It's Alessia Priolo on LinkedIn. My organization is Sincop8ed Noize.org. We promote a lot of events on the website. Yeah, feel free to reach out for any event tips, advice. Always happy to share my journey and any tips on promoting events or how to get into the event industry. Always happy to share this kind of information.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Event Promoter Podcast. Event Promoter Podcast is brought to you by Event Vesta. Check out Event Vesta at info.eventvesta.com. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we'd love a rating. Tell us how the show has been for you. If you leave a comment when you rate us on Apple Podcasts, we'll make sure to shout that out in one of the future episodes. If you have any questions for me as an event promoter or for one of our guests, we can bring those up on those calls. Thanks for listening, and make sure to share this with other event promoters that you think this would be helpful for. Bye.